The one line in this gospel here that really stands out and that rings in our ears and really impresses itself upon our heart is, unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains just a grain of wheat, but if it dies, it produces much fruit. Jesus didn't have to die on the cross to redeem us, but he did. And he set us that example of death, dying for others, giving himself for others. But he's setting a principle to us as well. We have to die to ourselves in order to do good in the world. If we don't die to ourselves, what are we going to do? We're going to live for ourselves. And what does living mean? If we had complete freedom, what would we do? We spend half of the day sleeping, the other half maybe watching TV in a sofa chair, kicking up our feet, watching programs, or going out and going on the beach and lying on the beach or whatever. Entertainments, the things that we'll do in heaven. Eternal rest, eternal bliss, eternal happiness forever without end. But that's not this life. This life is dying to ourselves. We have to die to ourselves, to our sinful inclinations, to our selfishness, to everything I want to do. Because if I give in to myself and all that I want to do, what good is that? What good do I do to the world? What good do I do to others? What good do I do for God if I'm just indulging in myself and my desires and my laziness? And I would just remember talking to one of my co-workers, and we were talking about a lion and how long a lion sleeps. He sleeps 20 hours a day. And I remember a co-worker saying, "What a life." And he sighed. It was like he wanted that for himself. But what a waste. What a waste of a life to sleep. I always think that, you wake up too late in the morning. I always used to feel I wasted my time, and it is a waste if we sleep too much, if we do too much of things that we shouldn't do. And you might call that a life, but God doesn't. In this life, we are to die to ourselves and think of all the many different ways we need to die to ourselves, our selfishness. Because if we indulge and we try to live it up, we don't do much good. And you can think of people in your life. I can think of several very holy people that would just live for others and work all day and exhaust themselves, not sleep too much, and just work and do good, and be quick to help other people and quick to see the needs of other people. And I can think of 2 or 3 people in particular that live that kind of life, and they bear so much fruit. They do so much good. One particular person used to help us, help the friars, and another friar we used to have, and friars would be sometimes doing our prayer or rest or doing something. This layperson would be working for us, and when we finished our things that we were doing, come back to our hall area, and everything was clean, everything was in order, everything was done, because this one person was exhausting themselves for this religious community, for God, really. The person was doing it for God and not for us in particular. But we get a lot of things done when we not just material things, not just cleaning and things like that we will get done if we don't waste time and we die to ourselves. We will have those things done, but most of all, we're talking about the spiritual benefit for souls. We're talking about changing hearts. We're talking about conversions that we want to bring about through our prayers and sacrifices, and through our generosity, through our dying to ourselves. And you see that in Saint Maximilian Kolbe. He used to die to himself all the time, even before he really died for himself, offering his life up for somebody else, offering to spend 2 weeks of starvation and then dying. That's what he offered. He offered that to God, to Our Lady, and for this fellow countryman, and he died to himself. And what fruit did he bear? We don't see everything, but we do see a lot. He's a national hero. I once said to a Polish man I met in Australia, do most of the people know, do you know about did you know about Saint Maximilian when you were back there? And he looked at me and he was angry at me, saying, how could you even ask that question? Everybody knows about Saint Maximilian in Poland. He's a national hero, but he's a hero to the world for what he did. A hero, but we don't see what he did. Maybe he single-handedly, or certainly with a lot of other sacrifices that were made during World War II and the concentration camps. He helped put an end to it. He helped to bring good out of evil. He helped to bring souls to salvation. He helped so many people who were perhaps dying and perhaps died in the state of grace or in God's favor, who were suffering that kind of cruelty. We don't know. But we do know that when we die to ourselves, we bear fruit, and we bear more spiritual fruit than we do physical fruit that we see in the things that we do with our hands and accomplish and build and do to get things done. We have to die to ourselves and have that spirit of mortification, spirit of self-forgetfulness, self-effacing, self-sacrificing. It's a spirit, it's a habit, and it's a beautiful thing that bears so much fruit for the world, for our family, for our religious families, for our families, for our community, for our society. We do so much good when we die to ourselves, when we are not selfish. Instead of we are selfless. And this takes thinking. We need to think about what we can do for others. We need to think about how we can sacrifice ourselves and not indulge so much, and mortify ourselves more. Think about how we can serve God more and pray to Him more for His glory and for the good of souls. We need to think about these things. And when we think, even though we may not have the strength at the time to go out and do these charitable works and do these things or pray as much as we want, at least we'll be one more step in that direction. And the more we think about doing good to others and being less self-indulgent, the much more likely we're going to do it, and we are going to do it. We're going to do it more, and we're going to be selfish less. So we have to think about these things. We have to think about others. We have to pray for others, and we have to have a mindset, that mindset of self-sacrifice, of self-denial, dying to ourselves. And we have the ultimate example of Jesus Christ, who did it from the first moment of His life in the cradle in Bethlehem to the last moment on the cross, dying for you and me. And He died to Himself every day, every moment of His life alongside Our Lady. And so many saints have given us similar examples. And we look up to the cross. We look up to the cross for that example of self-denial, dying to oneself. And you and me have to do that on a daily basis. We have to do it more and more, and we will be happy for it. We will be happy for it as we do it, and we will be happy for it especially at the end of our life, and we'll be thankful for it in eternity when we bear so much fruit for ourselves, but more importantly for the world, for the salvation of so many souls who need help. As Our Lady said, we don't pray for souls. So many souls go to hell because nobody prays for them. Nobody sacrifices for them. Nobody dies to themselves for them. And that's what we are called to do. And we have that beautiful image of a grain of wheat that is nothing unless it dies and it burrows itself into the soil and bears a big tree or whatever. But if we indulge in ourselves and we live for ourselves, we do very, very little good, or we do much worse. We do bad, we do evil for ourselves and for others. So let us bear fruit. Let's bear a lot of fruit by thinking less and less of ourselves, more of God and our neighbor, seeking to be generous in our self-sacrifice.
You Christus.